Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nityay Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nityay Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
जय तुलसी महारानी की
Jai
जय वृंदा देवी की जय
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Oh Tulsi, Radha Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavitams of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna, please. May I always sing in love of Shri Radha Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Madhanam Vahamaha Ravani Nirvapanam Shri Akari Pachandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Kadipadam Purnam Mutasadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Jayati Govinda Virahiname Asli Sabhapadaratam Vinastuna Adarshana Vamahatam Varotuva Tadatava Vinadatulam Pato Matranastastu Saivanaparam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarana Krishna. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. God spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, think oneself a lord and stroll in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion service birth after birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, nor will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name, nor will my voice choke up, and will the hairs on my body stand on end at the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I have considered the moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kristakam ki jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods and Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are for Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter.
It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully
guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our respectful obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadasya yato niviyat itaratas charteso vidyaswarat.
Janmadhyasya yatarambhayaditaratas chatirsavigyaswara.
Tene brahma hridaya adhikavaye muyanti yat surayaha.
Tene Brahma Rudaya Adhikavaye Mojanti Suraya.
Tejo varimadam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo misha.
Tejo Vanmida Jata Vinimajo Jatra Trisagam Risa.
Damna svena sada nirastakuhakam satyam param dhimahi.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyang Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva,
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of
O
Vasudeva,
all-pervading personality of Godhead,
O all-pervading personality of Godhead,
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
and the primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all
of the
causes,
creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, destruction of the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all
He is
manifestations,
directly and directly conscious of all manifestations.
and he's independent because there's no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is she only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
the original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation
of water seen on fire or land seen in water.
of water seen to fire or land seen to water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction with three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitravudra
Dharma Prajita Kaitavutra
paramo nirmatsaranam satam
Paramo Nirmasaranam Satam
vedyam vastavam atra vastu
Vedyam Vastavam Astra Vastu
shivadam tapa trayon mulanam
Shivadam Taputrimulalam
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kimva Purer Ishwaraha
Kimba Paririshvaraha
Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra
Sadyo Rudya Varidya Titra
Kriti Bihi Sususubhistakshanat
Kritibi Shushu Shubis that cannot.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are material motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in the heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, their reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such truth uproot the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva's maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need with the other
As
scripture?
soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively, submissively hears the message of
by
Bhagavatam,
this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of knowledge,
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
sukumukad amrita dravya samyutam,
sukha mukhadamrita drava sangitam,
pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam,
pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam,
mahur ahoraska bhuvi bhavakaha.
mura horasika bhuvi bhavuka.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad
the
Bhagavatam,
mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures.
the mature fruit, the desired tree of Vedic literature.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Shukadev Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this food has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
Although its nectarian juice is already reachable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shrimvatam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtanam,
Hiryantaksto hi abhadrani,
Hridyantastu hi bhadrani,
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
Vidunati Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literatures,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
is itself righteous activity.
it is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotees who constantly engage in hearing of him.
Nasta presu abhatresu
Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavata sevaya
bhagavati utamasloke
bhagavati uttamasloke
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
as he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the devotees,
and from the devotees.
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
He becomes fixed in this devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye
kamalobhadayaschaye
cheta etar anavidam
chetaitar navidam
stitvam sattve prasidati.
stitam sadve prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasanna manaso
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogata
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangasa Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Hridyate Hridaya Granthis
Chityante Sarva Samsaya
Chidyante Sarva Samshaya
Siyante Jasya Karmani
Jiyante Shasya Karmani
Drista Evat Manishwari.
Druta Evadmanishwari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus the Bhakti Yoga severs the hardness of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of samsham samang
understanding of the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna
Therefore, only by hearing from
or
Krishna
from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse number 47. Yeah.
Yep.
Apapesu svabrityesu
Apapeshu swabrityeshu
balena pakva buddhina
balena pakwa buddhina
papam krita tad bhagavan
papam kritam tad bhagavan
sarvatma shantamarhati.
sarvatma kyantumarati.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Then the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. Okay, let me read that again. Who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins. Okay, who was subordinate, he's referring to his son, and who deserved to be protected. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Everyone is responsible for his own action, either pious or sinful. Rishi Samika could foresee that his son had committed a great sin by cursing Maharaj Parikshit, who deserved to be protected by the Brahmanas, for he was a pious ruler and completely free from all sins because of his being a first-class devotee of the Lord. When an offense is done unto the devotee of the Lord, it is very difficult to overcome the reaction. The Brahmanas, being at the head of the social orders, are meant to give protection to their subordinates and not to curse them. There are occasions when a Brahmana may furiously curse a subordinate Kshatriya or Vaishya, etc. But in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no grounds, as already explained. The foolish boy had done it out of sheer vanity in being a Brahmana's son. And thus he became liable to be punished by the law of God. The Lord never forgives a person who condemns his pure devotee. Therefore, by cursing a king, the foolish Shringi had committed not only a sin, but also the greatest offense. Therefore, the Rishi could foresee that only the Supreme Personality of Godhead could save his boy from his sinful act. He therefore directly prayed for pardon from the Supreme Lord, who alone can undo a thing which is impossible to change. The appeal was made in the name of a foolish boy who had developed no intelligence at all. A question may be raised herein, that since it was the desire of the Lord that Parikshit Maharaj be put in that awkward position so that he might be delivered from material existence, then why was a Brahmana's son made responsible for this offensive act? The answer is that the offensive act was performed by a child only, so that he could be excused very easily. And thus the prayer of the father was accepted. But if the question is raised why the Brahmana community as a whole was made responsible for allowing Kali into the world affairs, the answer is given in the Varaha Purana, that the demons who acted inimically toward the personality of Godhead but were not killed by the Lord were allowed to take birth in the families of Brahmanas to take advantage of the age of Kali. The all-merciful Lord gave them a chance to have their births in the families of pious Brahmanas so that they could progress towards salvation. But the demons, instead of utilizing the good opportunity, misused the Brahminical culture due to being puffed up by vanity in becoming brahmanas. The typical example is the son of Samhika Rishi, and all the foolish sons of brahmanas are warned hereby not to become foolish as Shringi and be always on guard against the demoniac qualities which they had in their previous births. The foolish boy was, of course, excused by the Lord, but others, who may not have a father like Samhika Rishi, will be put into great difficulty if they misuse the advantages obtained by birth in a Brahmana family. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So why does it say that Shringi, who had no intelligence? Well, you have to understand what the word intelligence means. It means the ability to differentiate between what is right and wrong. The mind makes decisions also, but based on impressions. The intelligence is superior to the mind because it makes decisions based on knowledge. And best knowledge is Shastric knowledge. So, you have demons that are very intelligent. Well, it's not really intelligence. It is more like they are using logic and reason for sense gratification. That's different than real intelligence. Because real intelligence can differentiate between what is right and wrong, what is spiritual, what is material. So the intelligent demons, or the so-called intelligent demons, don't clearly see those differentiations between matter and spirit, between right and wrong. And they're able to rationalize right into wrong and wrong into right. So therefore, you cannot say that they have real intelligence. They may have logic, they may have rationality, they may have a mind that's able to analyze things, but intelligence is superior to that, because it can differentiate between who's God and who is the servant of God, between what is matter and what is spirit, between what is good, what is bad, between what is Krishna consciousness and what is not Krishna consciousness. They don't have that intelligence. They may have, as I say, logic, reason, so-called rationality, and so forth, but not real intelligence. Because intelligence is right next to the soul. It's very close to the soul. So, but the demons are going far away from, intelligence is very, the demons are going away from knowledge of the soul and knowledge of the soul's body of soul with Krishna, and they're approaching the demoniac qualities and the wrong conclusions of life. Now, this is explained more deeply in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the fact that Prabhupada translated Chaitanya Charitamrita is very significant. It is considered the postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. That means after studying, the undergraduate study is Bhagavad Gita, the graduate study is Srimad Bhagavatam, and the postgraduate study is Chaitanya Charitamrita. And you're going to see why now. Yesterday we were talking about how Sankaracharya deflected or misinterpreted the Vedanta Sutra purposely, and but of course he was ordered to do that, and how he was able to basically chase out the Buddhists from India, or most of them, There are still Buddhists in India today, and reestablished the authority of the Vedas that were rejected by Buddha, and for a good reason at that time. So then we stopped at the point where Prabhupada was talking about, well, the main points we made yesterday was the Satatvato Nyata Buddhir Vikara Iti Udadrita. This mantra indicates that from one fact, another fact is generated. For example, a father is one fact, and a son generated from the father is a second fact. Thus, both of them are truths, although one is generated from the other. This generation of a second independent truth from a first truth is called vikara, or transformation resulting in a byproduct. The Supreme Brahman is the absolute truth, and the energies that have emanated from him and are existing separately, such as the living entities and the cosmic manifestation, are also truths. This is an example of transformation, which is called vikara, or parinama. To give another example of vikara, milk is a truth, but the same milk may be transformed into yogurt. This yogurt is a transformation of milk, although the ingredients of yogurt and milk are the same. So why does Prabhupada go into all this detail? Because he's going to show how Sankaracharya skewed out meanings of the Vedanta Sutra that are not there. They're not there. But he, somehow or others, misinterprets them purposely in order to prove that Vyasadeva made a mistake, that he didn't really understand Vedanta Sutra, although he wrote it himself. But what the Vaishnavacharyas have done is proved that it was Sankaracharya who didn't understand the Vedanta. And obviously Vyasadeva did. And now we're going to explain how that happened. But if you listen carefully to this explanation, you'll be able to see through sophistry. What is sophistry? It's a big word. You want to look it up? S-O-P-H-I-S-T-R-Y. Sophistry, does anybody know the meaning of sophistry? Sophistry means basically false logic, lying, but lying intelligently that confuses people and convinces them what you're saying is the truth. What does it say?
Yeah, it says the use of fallacious arguments, especially with the intention of deceiving.
Yes, exactly right. So now we're going to see exactly how Sankaracharya tricked the Buddhists into becoming followers of the Vedas. But at the same time, he gave a Buddhist interpretation of the Vedanta Sutra and tried to convince his disciples, after he had tricked the Buddhists, that don't listen to anything I said before, just worship Govinda, right? But they didn't listen to him, unfortunately, and therefore Mayavad philosophy has become very popular today. Over 90% of the so-called gurus in India are Mayavadis. So unfortunately, they didn't listen to their guru, Sankaracharya. He's actually a bona fide guru, even though what he did was not bona fide, at least it looks not bona fide, but he was ordered to do it. Okay, so we established this principle that it's possible for one truth to generate another truth. And both of them function independently, although one is coming from the other. So then Prabhupada gave these examples of milk and yogurt, and he gave the example of a father and a child, father and mother and child. So he continues, in the Chandogya Upanishad there is the following mantra, Aitad, Atmyam idam sarvam. This mantra indicates without a doubt that the entire world is Brahman. Well, Brahman means what? It means spiritual. The absolute truth has inconceivable energies, as confirmed in the Svatasvatara Upanishad, Parasya Sakti Vividaiva Shriyate. And the entire cosmic manifestation is evidence of these different energies of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is a fact, and therefore whatever is created by the Supreme Lord is also factual. So that's the Vedic principle, that one truth can transform or generate and produce another truth, and both of them stand independently, although one depends on the other. Well, one is coming from the other, right? And therefore the Supreme Lord is a fact, and therefore whatever is created by the Supreme Lord is also factual. Everything is true and complete, or Purnam, but the original Purnam, the complete absolute truth, always remains the same. Purnat Purnam Udachyate, Purnasya Purnam Adaya. So this is the invocation mantra of the Ishopanishad, which says the Lord is complete and perfect. And because it's perfect and complete, everything that emanates from him is also perfect and complete. And even though infinite number of unities or things that are perfect and complete emanate from him, still he remains perfect and complete, never diminished. Okay? That's an extremely important mantra. And that mantra defeats the Mayavadis. So let's see how that happens. But the original Purnam, the complete absolute truth, always remains the same. Purnat Purnam Udachyate, Purnasya Purnam Adaya. The absolute truth and manifest creations which appear to be different from him. He nevertheless maintains his personality. He never deteriorates under any circumstances. So, this is what's confusing the Mayavadis, and then we'll see now. It is to be concluded that the entire cosmic manifestation is a transformation of the energy of the Supreme Lord, not of the Supreme Lord or the Absolute Truth himself. So, Prabhupada does not refer to Krishna as God. He refers to him as the Supreme Absolute Truth. There is a difference between God and the Supreme Absolute Truth. Well, now, why do I say that? Well, sometimes Krishna is referred to as God, but there are many gods. That's the problem. In a certain frame of reference, Shiva is God. In another frame of reference, you might even think that Indra is God. In another frame of reference, you might think that Durga Mata is God, or Ganapati is God. People worship them and call them God. So there is a difference between the Supreme Absolute Truth and God. God can refer to anyone who's an Ishwara, a controller. Right? Like, for example, in Amazon, guess who's God? Right. And in the Nazi Party in World War II, who was God? Right. You see, so, and if Hitler won the war, he would have been worshipped as God. He was already being worshipped as God by the Germans, many Germans, not all, but many. But if he had won the war, he would have been worshipped as God. Right? But obviously, he lost bitterly and completely because he was a demon. So, it says here, it is to be concluded that the entire cosmic manifestation is a transformation of the energy of the Supreme Lord, not of the Supreme Lord, or the Absolute Truth himself. Okay, now let's analyze that sentence. It's extremely important. It's saying that this whole material creation is a transformation of the energy of the Supreme Lord, not of the Supreme Lord or the Absolute Truth himself. Well, that's basically saying the same thing as Purnat Purnam Udachyate, right? That the Lord is perfect and complete, and everything that emanates from him is perfect and complete. And although infinite unities, perfect and complete things emanate from him, still he remains perfect and complete. So never diminished. Now, that is what you call parinama. The real definition of parinama, or transformation of energy, is purnamudachyate, that Krishna, the person, the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is never diminished or changed in his in his personality. The only thing that is transformed is his energy. Okay? So, are there examples of this in the material world? Yes, there are examples of it, many of them. For example, the sun is expanding its energy, seemingly infinitely, right? From the beginning of time to the end of time, the sun is going to be shining and pouring out infinite source of energy and never being diminished. Now, what happens to that energy? Well, first of all, the sun is never diminished, right? Secondly, it expands infinite amount of energy in terms of heat and light and different living entities are, and different things happen because of heat and light in the material world. First of all, the heat and light, or at least the heat of the sun, is keeping the planets in orbit. Secondly, the light is being captured by plants by photosynthesis, and the plants grow because of that light and the transformation of that light energy into mechanical energy. So the transformation of energy is happening in the material world on many, many different levels. Therefore, why would anyone assume that Krishna cannot expand his energy and still not lose his personality? You see? But this is what Sankaracharya is going to say. He's going to say that the Supreme Absolute Truth is Brahman. But if you say that Brahman can transform his energy and make it into the material world, that means Brahman would not be complete and perfect. Therefore, Sankaracharya said, Vyasadeva made a mistake. But we don't want to insult him by saying directly he made a mistake. But we'll do it indirectly. His mistake is that he actually thinks the material world and the living entities as independent or as unique persons and as have existence. Actually, the whole material world and all living entities is illusion. So, by misinterpreting Parinamavada, transformation of energy, a person can have their energy transformed without changing the person or diminishing the person in any way. At least Krishna can do that because he has inconceivable energies. But Sankaracharya said that if there's a transformation of energy, then the original source of that energy is diminished, and that would be a violation of the principle of Brahman, and therefore what we see in the material world is an illusion. It doesn't actually exist. Neither all the individuals nor the material energy itself. It's all illusory. Therefore, by a misinterpretation of Parinamavada, he made it synonymous or equal to what's called Vivarta Vada, that is, the theory of the false theory of illusion of the Mayavadis. False theory of illusion is that they're saying the material world is an illusion, the living entities in the material world are an illusion. When Krishna comes into the material world, he acts like an ordinary living. He is an ordinary living entity. He's under modes of material nature, and it's all an illusion anyway, because the material world is illusion and all the living entities are illusion. So he created this, he misinterpreted the word parinamavada. What's the misinterpretation? Misinterpretation is that if the absolute, if the supreme absolute truth is transformed, then it's no longer the supreme absolute truth. But that's not a fact, because Krishna has infinite, inconceivable energies, and he can expand them all he wants and still never be diminished. And the example that proves that it's possible is the sun, which is a material thing, but yet it's expanding infinite energy without being reduced. So if the sun can do it, and it's not only the sun, there are other examples of that in the material world. See? If you go to the webpage Solar School and type in Solar School, and then after that kinetic and potential and kinetic energy, you'll see many examples of things that transform their energy without being diminished. And the foremost example is the sun. So here we see, now we're going to analyze exactly how Sankaracharya did this. And has fooled people up until today. Millions and millions of people are fooled by his philosophy, because his disciples didn't listen to him. He told them, look, now let's stop this nonsense speculation and just worship Govinda, but they didn't listen to him. So, therefore it says, the material world and the living entities are transformations of the energy of the Lord, the absolute truth, or Brahman, who is the original source. In other words, the absolute truth, Brahman, is the original ingredient, and the other manifestations are transformations of this ingredient, or this source of energy. This is also confirmed in the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.3. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. The entire cosmic manifestation is made possible by the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, it is indicated that Brahman, the absolute truth, is the original cause, and that the living entities, jivas, and the cosmic manifestation, meaning the material world, are effects of this cause. The cause being a fact, the effects are also factual. Again, it goes back to that quote from that quote, Sa tattvato nyata bhutir vikara iti udadrita. This mantra indicates that from one fact, another fact is generated. For example, a father is one fact, and a son generated from the father is a second fact. Thus, both of them are truths, although one is generated from the other. This generation of a second independent truth from a first truth is called vikara, or the transformation resulting in a byproduct. The Supreme Brahman is the absolute truth, and the energies that have emanated from him and are existing separately, such as the living entities in the cosmic manifestation, are also truths. This is an example of transformation which is called vikara, or parinama. To give another example of vikara, milk is the truth, but the same milk may be transformed into yogurt. This yogurt is a transformation of milk, although the ingredients of yogurt and milk are the same. Okay? So, the cause being a fact, the effects are also factual, they are not illusion. Sankaracharya has inconsistently tried to prove that it is an illusion to accept the material world and the jivas as byproducts of the Supreme Lord, because in his conception, the existence of the material world and the jivas are different and separate from that of the absolute truth. Right there, he violates the principle of monism. Krishna is the real monist, because Krishna is everything, and everything comes from Krishna. But Krishna is also different than everything, and everything is not Krishna. So this is confusing for most people, but if you carefully listen and think about it, you'll see. So, Prabhupada says, with this jugglery of understanding, Mayavadi philosophers have propagated the slogan, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya, that Brahma or Brahman is the truth and the Jagat, the material world, is false, which declares that the absolute truth is fact, but the cosmic manifestation and living entities are simply illusions, or that all of them are in fact the absolute truth, and that the material world and living entities do not separately exist. In other words, there's only one living entity, that's Brahman, or there's only one thing, it's Brahman. And everything else is either Brahman or it is illusion. Right? So, therefore, everyone is one. Just like one time a person came to visit Ramakrishna, so-called Bhagavan Ramakrishna. And he knocked on the door, and Ramakrishna came on the other side of the door inside his hut or whatever. And he said, who is it? He said, it is I. He said, go away, you're nonsense. So the person was shocked. So he was thinking, what did I say wrong? I just told the truth, it's me. And he told me, go away, you're nonsense. So then he thought a little bit about it, because he had taken part in hearing Ramakrishna speak. So he knocked on the door again, and Ramakrishna said, who is it? He said, it is you. He said, come in, please. So, yeah, that's the whole point, that the Mayavadis think that everything is one, right? So if everything is one, you don't have to drink milk. You can liquefy the stool and drink that, because everything is one, right? But no, that's not true. And the Mayavadis won't accept to liquefy their stool and drink it, right? So, therefore, with this jugglery of understanding, Mayavadi philosophers have propagated the slogan, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mitya, which declares that the absolute truth is fact, but the cosmic manifestation and the living entities are simply illusions. Or that all of them are in fact the absolute truth, and that the material world and living entities do not separately exist. So that's why the Mayavadi sannyasis address each other as Namo Narayana. They're all Narayanas, right? Even though they might be eating meat or drinking or philandering or whatever, but they're all Narayanas, see? Because everyone is, either no one is God, it's all an illusion, or everyone is God. It means the same thing, right? Okay, so then, it is therefore to be concluded that Sankaracharya, in order to present the Supreme Lord, the living entities, and the material nature as indivisible and ignorant, tries to cover the glories of the Supreme Personality Godhead. He maintains that the material cosmic manifestation is mithya, or false. But this is a great blunder. If the Supreme Personality Godhead is a fact, how can his creation be false? Even in ordinary dealings, one cannot think that one cannot think the material cosmic manifestation to be false. Therefore, yeah, just like if you get a ticket from a cop, and he gives you the ticket, and you tear it up in front of him and say, "This is false." What do you think would happen to you? He would get really upset, and he probably would arrest you. You see? And to prove to you that it's not false, right? So this is crazy stuff. This is loony-toony, so-called philosophy, you see? But yet people accept it. What, is there a question?
Yeah, there was one online. Sorry to disrupt
That's all right. That's all right.
your flow. Lord Shiva, who came as Shankaracharya, is a Param Vaishna. How to understand the philosophical difference in reference to what he's been doing?
I kept saying he was ordered to do it by Narayana. Okay? But we'll come to that. We're going to come to that.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So if we fast forward to Madhya Lila chapter 6, verse 172. This is a spoken verse by Lord Chaitanya. He says, Sankaracharya's theory states that the absolute truth is transformed. By accepting this theory, the Mayavadi philosophers denigrate, or in other words, insult, Srila Vyasadeva by accusing him of error. They thus find fault in the Vedanta Sutra and interpret it to try to establish the theory of illusion. And now the purport. This amazing purport. The first verse of the Brahma Sutra is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. We must now inquire into the absolute truth. The second verse immediately answers the first question. Janmadasyayata. The absolute truth is the original source of everything. Janmadasyayata does not suggest that the original person has been transformed. Rather, it clearly indicates that he produces this cosmic manifestation through his inconceivable energy. This is also clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, chapter 10, verse 8, where Krishna says, Matak sarvam pravartate. From me, everything emanates. This is also confirmed in the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1.1. Yatova imani bhutani jayante. The Supreme Absolute Truth is that from which everything is born. Similarly, in the Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.7, it is stated, Yatorna nabi srijate grinnatecha. The Lord creates and destroys the cosmic manifestation. As a spider creates a web and draws it back within himself, because the spider's web is made out of his saliva. And the spider can expand his saliva and make a beautiful geometric design with it, right? And he can reabsorb it, just like people can spit something and then reabsorb their spit, right? That's basically what the spider is doing. So the energy of the spider is expanded and it's reabsorbed into the spider again. This is clearly explained in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, where Krishna says, Matak sarvam pravartate. From me, everything emanates. This is also confirmed in the Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1.1, Yatova imani bhutani. The Supreme Absolute Truth is that from which everything is born. You see the difference between the Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita specifically names Krishna as the Supreme Absolute Truth. You see? And the Upanishads just say the Supreme Absolute Truth. It doesn't say who it is. That's why Upanishad is Upanisha. It's the gradual going from the four original Vedas and gradually going toward understanding who is actually the Supreme Absolute Truth. Because if you read the four original Vedas, you will not understand who is the Absolute Truth personality of Godhead. You'll not understand. You'll think it's Indra, or you'll think it's Chandra, or you'll think it's somebody else, right? Because there are all these mantras and rituals for all these personalities. And Krishna is not named in the Upanishads. He's referred to only as Om. And they give the false interpretation of Om, the Mayavadis. So therefore, you have no way of understanding that Om refers to Krishna. You would have to read the Bhagavad Gita to understand that Om actually refers to Krishna. Om is made of three letters, A, U, M. A means Krishna, U means Radharani, and M means the living entity and the cosmic manifestation. So when you say Aum, you're referring to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Radharani, his internal energy of love and devotion, and the whole, all living entities and the cosmic manifestation, which is coming from Krishna. See? So, that's not explained in the Upanishads. But the Upanishads begin that movement, Upanisha, coming closer to Isha, or the Supreme Controller. But according to the Upanishads, there are many controllers, right? Because there's rituals for Indra, there's rituals for Chandra, there's rituals for this demigod and that demigod. Right? It's only when that movement begins with the Upanishads, which are parts of the Vedas, but it doesn't really finalize until you come to Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Which is also a Vedic scripture. So rather, it says, Janmarashayata does not suggest that the original person has been transformed. Rather, it clearly indicates that he produces the cosmic manifestation through his inconceivable energy. This is also clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Matak Sarvam Pavartate. From me, everything emanates. This is also confirmed in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Yatovai imani bhutani jayante. The supreme absolute truth is that from which everything is born. Similarly, in the Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.7, it is stated, Yatorna nabi srijate grinate cha. The Lord creates and destroys the cosmic manifestation. But it doesn't say who is the Lord, because you're still in the Upanishads, right? It could mean Shiva, it could mean Indra, it could mean whoever, right? Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai. The Lord creates and destroys the cosmic manifestation, as a spider creates a web and draws it back within itself. All these sutras indicate the transformation of the Lord's energy. It is not that the Lord undergoes direct transformation, which is called parinamavada. So parinamavada, the correct understanding of it is transformation of the energy of the Lord, not the Lord himself. And Sankaracharya changes that, and he says it's impossible to transform and not be changed. Therefore, parinamavada only means transformation of the thing itself, of Brahman. It cannot be transformed without being changed. That's what he's implying, right? However, being very anxious to protect Srila Vyasadeva from criticism, basically they're saying he made a mistake, Sankaracharya became a pseudo-gentleman, pseudo means false gentleman, and put forward the theory of illusion, Vivartavada. That's sort of to save the honor of Vyasadeva, who he just sullied, or he just contaminated by his misinterpretation. He wants to act like the savior, and he says, well, he made a mistake, but it's not really a mistake, because the whole material world and all the jivas, it's all illusion. It doesn't exist. Sankaracharya became pseudo-gentleman and put forward his theory of illusion, Vivartavada. Sankaracharya concocted this meaning of Parinamavada, and by word jugglery, he endeavored very hard to establish Parinamavada as Vivartavada. In other words, transformation as an illusion. But yet, in the material world, we're seeing transformation all the time without the source of it being changed. The best example is the sun, but there are other examples of it. If you go to that web page that I said, solar school, and then type after that kinetic, potential and kinetic energy, you'll see many examples of things in the material world that expand their energy but are not transformed. Now the next verse is important also. It explains, the theory of illusion can be applied only when the living entity identifies himself with the body. The whole Vedic literature, the theory of illusion is only when a jiva identifies with the body. It has nothing to do with transformation of energy, right? As far as the cosmic manifestation is concerned, it cannot be called false, although it is certainly temporary. Okay, so now we're going to go back. No. All right, now I want to fast forward a little bit more and give you give the explanation Prabhupada gives of how Sankaracharya cheats or creates misinformation from so-called from Vedic verses, right? Because this is something that's happening today also, all the time, by many, many different people, not only the Mayavadis. The politicians do it, the philosophers do it, the scientists do it. Even I know devotees that do it. This whole Ritvik thing was done by what you're going to hear now. Right? And other things too, even in ISKCON. So if you understand what I'm going to explain now, what not I'm explaining it, Prabhupada has explained, I'm going to try and explain it as he's given it, you'll never be tricked by false logic. You'll be able to recognize it right away. Whereas no one is taught this. This has to be taught to our kids. They should learn it early in life, because then they will be able to recognize when someone's trying to con them, right? The word con is very important. It means that someone is misinterpreting things in order to trick you and exploit you. So here's the way they do that. Madhya Lila, chapter 6, verse number 176. So I'm skipping things that we'll go over in the next couple of days. I want to get to this most important part. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu criticized Sankaracharya's Sarirak Bhasya as imaginary. Sarirak Bhasya is the commentary that Sankara wrote on the Vedanta Sutra written by Vyasadeva. And all the Mayavadis explain Sarirak Bhasya to try and explain to others what is Vedanta Sutra. In fact, if you go to Tirupati, they have a Vedic university. Most of the professors in that Vedic university are Mayavadis. In Balaji's temple, it's supported by the Balaji Devastam, the money for that university. It's a Vedic university. People study there. They study Sanskrit, they study Vedanta Sutra, they study Vaishnava philosophy. But most of the teachers are Mayavadis. Unbelievable. And they teach Sarirak Bhasya. Okay. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu criticized Sankaracharya's Sarirak Bhasya as imaginary, and he pointed out hundreds of faults in it. To defend Sankaracharya, however, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya presented unlimited opposition. So this is before Sarvabhauma became a devotee. The Bhattacharya presented various types of false arguments with pseudo-logic and tried to defeat his opponent, meaning Lord Chaitanya, in many ways. However, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu refuted all these arguments and established his own conviction. So this is what we should be able to do. Not only hear nonsense from the philosophers, the scientists, the teachers, the so-called gurus, and the false gurus and things like that, but we should be able to defeat them by understanding how they're misrepresenting. Now here it goes. The word vitanda indicates that a debater, not touching the main point or establishing his own point, simply tries to refute the other person's argument. Okay, that's called vitanda. In other words, deflect the debate away from the real subject, simply to defeat the other person's point. When one does not touch the direct meaning, but tries to divert attention by misinterpretation, he engages in chala. The word nigraha also means always trying to refute the arguments of the other party. So in other words, there are people that engage in debates not to understand the truth, but simply to defeat the other person. See? And the techniques they use are vitanda and chala and nigraha. Okay, so now, what does that mean? I mean, these are just words right now, and you're probably not going to remember this, But let's discuss this a little more, because you can only understand it if we go deeply into what Sankaracharya has done in the Vedanta Sutra and what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya tried to do with Lord Chaitanya. Then you begin to understand. So, what does Sankaracharya do? He gave, number one, a false meaning of parinama, vada. Right? See, he was trying to deflect the real understanding of Parinamavada and give his own interpretation of it, so he could make make out Vedavyas as having made a mistake and not understanding the book that he wrote himself called Vedanta Sutra, and that Sankaracharya really understands it, and Vedavyas misunderstood it. So he takes this word parinamavada, which means direct transformation. What is a direct transformation? Again, you're going to have to read this webpage, Solar School, and look up kinetic potential and kinetic energy. It means that there's such when, like for example, you eat an apple and it gives you energy, and then you ride a bicycle and you get really tired. You just spent your energy, right? Now you're still alive, you're still a person, but your energy got wasted and you became tired, okay? So that's another example of transformation of energy without changing the person, right? However, sometimes, like for example, if a mountain blows up, what happens? All the rocks fall down. Now when they fall down, the potential energy that they had when they were in place now becomes kinetic energy, or moving energy, and when the rock hits rock bottom, it's lost all its potential energy, and also it's lost its kinetic energy because it can't go any further down, right? So now it's like zero, right? It's still a rock, but it became zero. It has no more potential or kinetic energy. Kinetic energy means the energy when it's moving, and potential energy is when it's standing still but on a high ground. So the potential of that energy is there, and then it's realized when it falls, right? But when it hits the bottom, there's no more energy, theoretically, because it can't go any further, right? So Sankaracharya is saying that if the Brahman, which has all this potential energy, transforms, then it would not be whole anymore. It would not be one anymore. It would not be complete, right? So that's true in the case of the rock that fell down and now it's stable and it's never not going to fall anymore. But it's not true in the case of Krishna or his Brahman energy. His Brahman energy is infinite. There's no beginning and no end to it. It's eternal. Therefore, it's never going to be wasted. It's never going to be expended. It can simply be, when I say, it can emanate infinitely without ever being diminished. Right? So, Sankaracharya lied. He used his reason and logic to befuddle people. Right? And what did he do? He tried to prove that the Supreme and Absolute Truth is mundane because it can lose its energy. And when it loses its energy, it loses its oneness. So therefore, he gave a false definition to Parinamavada. Parinamavada means directly transformed. So what is directly transformed? Well, let's say a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Now, a butterfly can fly. A caterpillar can't. So there's been a transformation. But in that transformation, you don't see the caterpillar anymore. Now you see a beautiful butterfly. So this complete transformation. That is Parinamavada. But Sankaracharya says that Parimanavada, that's not Parimanavada. That's a transformation of the energy. So Sankaracharya says that if there's transformation of energy, then the original oneness is lost. However, Krishna can expand energies infinitely without losing his personality or his completeness, right? Okay, so this principle called vitanda, it indicates that a debater not touching the main point or establishing his own point. So Sankaracharya established his own point by giving a false definition of Parinamavada. And he simply tries to refute the other person's argument. When one does not touch the direct meaning, but tries to divert attention by misinterpretation. So the Lord Chaitanya said, if you want to understand the Vedas, you have to take the dictionary meaning of each word. But the Mayavadis, they try and find subsidiary meanings, or they make up meanings. And in this way, they establish their theory of illusion. Okay, so we'll continue some more tomorrow. It's a big topic, but to understand it better, we'll actually see more in detail how Sankaracharya misinterpreted things to establish his theory of Mayavad philosophy.
Yeah.
Prabhupada ki jai.
I like when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed with the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya after hearing the Vedanta for 7 days. In the end, Mahaprabhu said, I understand this sutra very well, but your explanation like the cloud, covering the sun.
Yeah.
So that was the
the ultimate
classic.
insult.
That was classic. And then it was shocked. Said, what? To understand sutra, you need explanation. You saw my explanation.
Well, if you think you know better than me, why don't you explain it?
Mahaprabhu was so humble. He said, I understand sutra, but your explanation is very difficult to understand. The other way around. I like that. So,
Only Mahaprabhu could
but
do
then
that.
Mahaprabhu also, he's the one actually introduced Sripad Sankaracharya, honor Sankaracharya. He used that Sripad.
Yeah.
As Mahaprabhu.
Because he knows.
There's something he did with other Sampradayas. He took one good thing.
Yeah.
That is preaching by the soul. Anyway.
Shri Guru Charana